Hello, everybody. Dr. Stu Hoffman back again with you with another ChiroSecure special. Today, I have another friend of mine, Dr. Alex, on with us, and his claim to fame is he's been on TV on over 200 live news segments nationally and internationally. And this is a big interest to me because when I was in practice all those many moons ago, I was on TV. I was on TV on the local news wherever I was in practice. So in Michigan, we had a lot of outflow that created some interest in the local news media. And I had the fortune of being on some of these shows. But, you know, any of you that have been with us on any of the shows we've done over the last couple of years, we've put out so much information on this whole stroke issue. And one of the things that we talk about is, hey, what do you do if the news media comes to you and wants you to be on or a statement? And as much as that sounds great and you're eager to do it and you're going to be famous, at least in your own mind, then there's other things to consider. Number one, what are the risks? Because my concern is what you actually have to say so that you don't get yourself into trouble. But in addition to that, what if you don't know how to present yourself properly in the first place? You don't want it to be one and done. And not only has Alex been on all of these times, but his program teaches doctors how to get on TV, how to get on the local news, and how to get asked back. So, Alex, I just want to bring you on and just say, hey, thanks for coming on. We've met a number of times now at, Paul Reed's ChiroFest in Atlanta, at Light Vision, and you go around to a lot of the same circles as I wind up as we cross paths around the country. And I really appreciate that. You come from the same stock and the same place chiropractically. And I'm glad to have you. So thanks for doing this for our doctors.
No, Stu, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And I always love getting to see you at the events and everything too. It's one of those things where it's always good whenever we get to cross paths. So I appreciate you having me on there or on here. And, you hit a lot of great points on the introduction there about we think that whenever we get on TV, it's like, boom, that's going to be it. I'm a mega star and I'll just get out there and wing it. And unfortunately, that one and done scenario happens far too often as we're not prepared.
Right. And I think a lot of this, if my memory serves me well, started when you were the chiropractor for the world champion St. Louis Cardinals at the time. Yeah. And, the St. Louis Rams, cheerleaders, etc. How did that all happen for you so that the audience can get an idea of how this actually developed before we get into what you do and what you actually teach?
Sure. I actually got on TV first. That was my first place that I ended up getting on. I got on TV. Then a couple years later, I ended up getting connected in with the Cardinals. Then a few years later, got connected in with the Rams and was with them until they ended up moving. All those things I can say were just the opportunities that presented themselves where I kept on pushing for those opportunities to come and more and more things came. And as you know, it's like you lay down the groundwork in the beginning. You don't know what's going to end up coming out, but you know that if I do the right thing and I can do it strategically the right way long enough, it'll happen. As far as getting on the news goes, it was a situation where I kept trying and trying. So I've been doing that for over going on a decade now. And in that, it was a situation where I ended up trying and trying to get on the news a decade ago is much different than it is now. But
agreed.
It's a great situation to be on the news because of the fact that you get positioned, like you said, you get that local positioning of being the expert within your community. And that's what we want for more of our docs. So that whenever those issues come up about stroke or about whatever it is, they're positioned in the right light, not positioned in a bad spot.
Well, when I mentioned that I had been on the air a number of times, one of the additional things that took place, and you're talking the last decade, well, this was about 24 years ago when 2020 did that whole hit program on chiropractors for taking care of kids.
Right.
And when that happened, we at least had a heads up about it.
Sure.
And a number of us, I'm not going to get into the whole story, but we developed a PR campaign at the time. And as a result of that, we got the president of the ICA and myself, we were all on TV here in Arizona. And the people that came and did the video with us, they were so cool and they understood, and we connected because, as you said, first and foremost, do the right thing.
Right.
And when we connected, they wanted to keep my information, since I was local, to be the authority for them on news things that show up pertaining
Sure.
to health.
Sure.
And I thought that was really cool. And but you said it really well in that things have changed. The news media is not the same today as what I knew of it 24, 25 years ago. So how has that changed?
A lot of different ways. I mean, just in what it is that they're looking for as far as topics go, what it is that they're doing as far as how they're structuring segments. The attention span that people have now has gotten shorter and shorter. So how is it that we're going to keep it interesting? How is it that we're going to keep it to where it hooks people in, like garnishes actual attention? And I think that a lot of times we don't realize the depth at which the knowledge that we have that can really gain a lot of attention and traction in our community. So those types of things, whenever you're looking at it from the perspective of how do I get more attention in my community, that puts you at the pinnacle, being on your local news station, right? Because that's where you want to be. And
is, from your perspective, why would an average chiropractor want to be on the news? Because, as I've gone around now 36 years of going around the profession,
sure.
I find that so many, years ago, the successful action was very simple. You do lectures for the public and you will have the biggest practices in your area. And a lot of the people that I followed and a lot of the ones that you've come in contact with all taught that and did it, and they were successful at it, and they were the biggest. Sure. And so many of the doctors are so afraid to get up. Maybe I shouldn't say afraid, but we know that getting up in front of people is so fearful for so many. And it really freezes people from doing some things that will actually make it so easy for them to be so ultra successful in terms of building a practice. Now, we're talking about getting on TV. What can be more fearful than that, as far as I'm concerned? Right. I mean, I've done it, you've done it, yeah. But for the average person, why would they want to?
Yeah, I think that the big thing is it's not about us, right? It's not about us. It's about our community. It's about them knowing what the message is really about for chiropractic and what it is that they can have as far as better health goes. If you think about it right now, if you're listening to this, watching this, when you're thinking about right now, take off your hat of who a doctor is and or you as a doctor. And so as you're thinking about that, you're not a doctor, you're Joe Blow public. And as you're out there in the public, you're thinking to yourself, okay, who is the best doctor that I know of? Most people are going to think about Dr. Oz, or they're going to think about the doctors on the Doctor Show, and they're going to think about Dr. Phil, because they garnish the most attention. And as they garnish the most attention, they have the greatest arbitrage of that attention. And so then they can disperse it however they want. Well, you get to have that same opportunity as being the doc on the news in your local community, because of the fact that when people start to think about health, they start thinking about wellness, it starts to go up into a pyramid. So you have your general practitioner here, you have kind of your surgeons here, and then you have the doctors that are on the news at the top. That's how people, the public, thinks about the doctors that are on the news. I mean, just if you're not sure about that, ask your friends, your colleagues, and ask just, hey, as general thought process, who is it that you think was a great doctor that's out there in the general public? And they're usually going to say one of those three. So that's a great reason. Number two would be the fact that they have a massive reach, right? Where else can you go and reach hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people all in 3 to 5 minutes? Well, if you were to try to do that on a one-on-one aspect, it would take you years, if not decades, to make that happen. And now you get to do it in such a mass market. You get to do it to reach out so many people, to get them to understand what your message on health and wellness is. And as long as you know how to do that in an effective and thoughtful way, it's going to make an impact in your market. And then you have more new patients, increased free time, increased profits, all those things too, right?
So what I heard you say is that the doctors that understand the why we do what we do will want to, and I was just talking to Billy DeMoss, helping highlight some of the things that are going to happen at CalJam, and he struck me, and I've known Billy for a long time, but he struck me with one thing. He didn't really, at CalJam, he has more than chiropractors on the stage. He has people that are going to be on there with other aspects of the health and the environment and food and all of that, because his own purpose is to make a bigger difference in his community.
Right.
And that's really what you're talking about from a chiropractic model, is making a bigger impact and getting the message out. And it's something that we've quite frankly talked a lot about when we have a situation that may turn up in the news that's not so positive on the chiropractic end of things. Well, how do you educate enough people so they become your warriors,
right,
rather than duck out of your office,
right,
and hide when they see you coming around the corner?
Right.
You're really right on with that from my perspective, in that, if we really want to play big, this is how to do it. And, it's really a matter of getting there. But one question I have about it, if we're talking about a local news show, and I know we are,
mm-hmm.
they're usually much more open and friendly. And I think back to last year when Dr. Oz had Steve Shoshone, chiropractor,
Sure.
in New York, on about Katie Mae stroke situation with the Instagram or Snapchat queen,
right,
who had died. And it seemed like everything, the whole hype of the show is, can a chiropractor kill you?
Mm-hmm.
And that was so offensive to so many of us, and I took it personally, even knowing that Dr. Oz is a big chiropractic promoter. And Steve Shoshone takes care of so many people on his staff, which is why he was the one that was put on.
Right.
So you can really run into some roadblocks if you get on, and you need to be prepared,
right,
and know what your messaging is going to be. And how, I know you teach doctors this, how do you prepare them for something like that?
Well, something like that, I mean, that's a specific scenario where it's, all right, let's go at this from the understanding of, are we going into, is it going to be a friendly atmosphere? Is it going to be we're going to be attacked and firing at type of an atmosphere? And once we understand that, then we can prepare from there so we can work backwards. So once we know the context of the conversation, then we can really start working on what the conversation is going to look like. So in that type of scenario, it's, all right, let's figure that out. Then we work backwards from there. Once we work backwards from there, then we can start structuring that strategy of all of it. So really, it's context. It's, let's figure out the context first, then we can start getting out the content the way that we need to, and start working on that to build from there. But you have to know what you're walking into. To walk into a space like that and not know what you're walking into is, that's not going to do any good for the profession. That's not going to do any good for you, your name, your reputation, any of those things. So like Steve, whenever Shoshone got on there, he knew what he was walking into. He knew the way that it was going to be structured. He knew what was going to be happening. And, he had to handle some tough questions, but he did a good job with it.
He did a great job.
Yeah.
He served the profession well.
For sure. He did a great job.
Maybe not everyone sees it that way, but anyone that knows,
make everybody happy.
Knows the circumstance he was under, he did terrific.
Yeah.
And can you tell me, give me an example of a tough question or situation that you've experienced personally?
Sure. I mean, I would say that whenever you have a situation where you don't know, either you don't know the answer to the question, or because you have to imagine these reporters, they're not just interviewing you, they're interviewing a lot of other people, right? They're interviewing orthopedic surgeons and GPs, and they're interviewing all kinds of people. And they've been doing this day in, day out for decades. And because of that, they have all this arsenal in the back that they can use. And so every now and then they might ask you a question that you just don't know the answer to, or it's a question that if I go down this rabbit hole, this is going to take me way off of where I need to go. And if we go down that rabbit hole and we go in a direction that we don't need to go, then all of a sudden you're going to lose interest. You're going to lose interest from your market. You're going to lose as far as you're not going to be able to get your real agenda that's out there of I'm going to help with chiropractic and I'm going to help promote my practice as well. So what I do is I like to redirect. And so it's always, that's a great question. I really like that, and then you start to redirect them. So that's a great question. That's something that would be a great thing for us to talk about on another segment. We can talk about that, but that's going to I could do a whole other segment on that and we could really dive into it. But I tell you what, for this segment right now, I think it's best if we talk about and then kind of redirect it. But you have to know who you're talking to as well as how you can say that kind of thing. There's certain there's certain reporters and there's certain anchors whenever I would talk to, but I'd have to redirect in a much different way. So you have to know, again, it's who before how it is that you say it. There's not just one key answer to give for that. But yeah, those hard questions, you've got to be ready for them. You've got to have that in your back pocket. So, this is what I say whenever that happens, because it's going to happen. It's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen.
That's right. And you also, I think from what I've heard, you have to have the doctors understand that they can go and do a 20-minute segment and it may wind up at 30 seconds or as you said, 3 to 4 minutes.
Right.
You never know how spliced up you're going to get unless it's live, right? Because you do have live segments too.
Absolutely. All of my segments, all of mine except for one, have been live.
Oh, nice.
And the docs that whenever I'm getting them on TV and helping them through the process and the program and everything else, it's the same thing. The vast majority of them, I would say 98% of the time it's live. So because it's live, you've got to be game day.
Right.
I don't want you practicing on your paycheck. I don't want you practicing right then and saying, oh, I'm just going to decide what I'm going to say right there on the spot. This will be fine. I can roll with it. And then it always turns into, I should have, I could have, I would have said that had I known. And then you've blown your opportunity. And like you said, when we started, then you're a one and done. And none of us need that in the profession, because not only do you blow the shot for you, you blow it for your other, your colleagues that are there in your community too.
And I relate that to what we deal with in the malpractice world, because I get to coach like you, but in a different world, a lot of doctors that have issues with a patient all the way up through an actual claim. Mm-hmm. And if they have a claim, very often they're going to go through a deposition. And depositions aren't really that hard. It's just knowing and being prepared that the opposing attorney, unlike, some of the segments, but you still need to be prepared. The opposing attorney is going to try and trip you up. If you understand that, you can easily work your way through anything that they have to bring at you. And I think that on a lot of these segments that you're referring to, it's not that you're going in against the world. They're having you on for a reason. It's not like a deposition.
Right.
And believe me, I've coached so many doctors getting ready for a deposition, and they do just fine. You just have to know, as you said, when to be honest about, hey, I just don't know that answer.
Right.
Or maybe I may use a different term than deflect, but that was, a fair point. But one of my concerns when doctors...
It's redirect too. It's not so much
redirect.
It's redirect, because I want to bring that conversation back into the proper context, because it's easy to get off track. So I want to redirect the conversation. And when you only have a short window of opportunity for that, I don't want my docs to lose that opportunity.
I appreciate that, because I missed that piece, and that was great. The concern that I have when I talk to our doctors that are dealing with the media, and the media, you're being specific here today in terms of how to get on TV, and I want to touch on that a little bit more in a minute. But when we're dealing with media, it could be a print ad, it could be being on television, the radio. There's so many different avenues, and the doctors are not careful. And so I would be concerned from a risk management perspective that they get on TV and say, yeah, their medicine failed them and I can help. Well, they're bad mouthing the medical doctor,
Right.
in a sense, and promising results. Even something so simple as opposed to getting on there and saying, yeah, it's really a tragedy with headaches. We've dealt with so many people that have come to me that didn't really have enough success through other health care means. And we've had such great success, and this is how we've done it. You're saying the same thing, just much more impactful and safer. It's not going to bring you up in front of your state board,
right,
and have them smack you a little bit.
Right.
And any thoughts on that?
Well, I was going to say, you make an excellent point in the fact that once you've said these things, they're out there, right? I mean, it's out there. It's recorded. We've got that. You said this, and that's it. So you've got to make sure that it's structured very carefully and very eloquently so that you don't end up in a situation like that. So you don't end up in a scenario where, hey, you've got defamation going on. You've said something negative about this other profession or this other person or whatever it is, so that now you're held liable for that. And sometimes when people hear that, they think, oh my gosh, there's so much liability that goes on with doing that. Well, you could say the same thing about what you do each and every day, right? You're dealing with malpractice, and people look at that like, oh, there's so much problem with that and everything. Well, there is, but if you do things right, it's not a problem. And so, right, it's like, as long as you do it the right way, you're okay. You do it the wrong way, there's going to be a problem, or it has an increased likelihood of having a problem. So let's make sure that we minimize and mitigate those risks as much as possible to ensure that you have the greatest success possible.
Right. And, even in our office, which is really an insurance office,
right,
we have 20 some odd people in here, and we have meetings every week. We have meetings, huddles every morning. And it's important that the entire team know that, number one, what is our mission? But everyone has an intention for each and every action that they take. And with that intention, you have to have integrity behind it. And in addition to the integrity, you still have to have the communication skills, because whether you're on TV or one-on-one, it's still, from what I was hearing from you, which is what made me think of this, it's still all about connection, connecting to people, whether it be through a screen or in an audience or, as I say, one-on-one, because all of business is really about connection. In this day and age, we're not in the 80s where you take someone in a consultation room and you choke them until they give you their wallet for a lifetime of care and pay you upfront forever. And if they don't pull it out of their wallet, then you go get recruits to come in and now break their leg and, do whatever you have to do. That was
some crazy people that are
anymore. And it's really all about making connections, doing it for the right reason, and being able to communicate that in an effective way.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that's a little bit about what you go and teach. So can you share with us a little bit about your program and how you get the doctors to get on TV? You can't give your whole program on a show like this, but how do you teach them to get on and coach them through it?
Well, the important thing is that I don't do it to where it's like I don't ever support anything that's like a pay to play. I think that a lot of times docs look at it and they go, okay, so how much does it cost for me to actually work with the news station? Like, what do I pay every time? And that gets to be really, really expensive. So I'm not I don't like pay to play. I don't like for you to pay every time that you're on TV. That could be $1,500, $2,500, $5,500 every time you're on. I don't find that works really well. And because people start to pick up the stink of that with the show, that they figure out, oh, this show just is about promoting all these other things. So I don't like that. I like to show them how to do what you just said. I'm going to show them how to make the right connections, develop that relationship, what to do when they're on. So, we've got to have a pre-game, game time, post-game, right? So pre-game is, this is what you do in order to get your foot in the door and make it happen. game time is, this is what you've got to do whenever you're on TV, and make the most out of that opportunity without stepping on anybody's toes, because there are a lot of landmines there, right?
Yeah.
The details matter, and you've got to make sure that you follow their process. They don't tell you what the process is. They don't give you any of the inside information. They don't tell you anything. It would be like, somebody gets into a deposition, and all of a sudden they don't say, hey, look, this is what you need to be prepared for. This is what you need to know. They're just going in blind. And that's right. That's what the vast majority of people do whenever they get the opportunity to be on TV, or they create that opportunity to be on TV. If they don't know what to do next, then they're literally losing. They're going to lose. Like that person that doesn't understand what to do in the depot, what to say, what not to say, how to make sure that they're answering questions in a truthful, honest manner, or whatever it is they need to do in order to get themselves in the best position possible. Because the other guy's job is to make sure that you're not in a good position.
That's right.
So on TV, the idea is they just want to ask their questions, have you be the professional that you are, and make sure that you know how to handle the response to those questions as well. Then whenever it's afterwards, what to do, what not to do, where are the landmines, where are the pitfalls, what are those things that they're going to go, hey, that's something you should have never, ever done, because that's something that's actually going to look bad on us as the station or you as the individual doc. So don't do that. But they don't tell you those things. They just go, okay, we just won't use that guy anymore. Or she wasn't a good fit for us, right? They don't tell you. They just let you alone. They just go, it's radio silence. That's it. And so I make sure that the docs understand that whole process, what they need to do throughout that process to ensure that they get on TV and stay on TV multiple times.
Do you make sure you coach them to go to the bathroom before they go on?
Yes, and never have the microphone on whenever that happens.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I will share this. I have actually been there at the station where somebody's had their mic on and gone into the restroom. Now they obviously, in the booth they can control all that. It's not a problem. But the last thing you want is the guys in the booth to be hearing you go into the restroom or psyching yourself up or whatever it is that you're doing. You can turn that mic off. Let's do that. Yeah.
And on a more serious note, just coming back to this, one of the things that I think I've heard you talk about, and it's something that we have in common, is I always like to get the doctors to understand that their job is not to ever feel like they need to be defensive. They need to be educational. If they're educational, they're going to look and be professional. And I know some of the doctors out there, well, I don't want to be professional. I'm a disruptor. I'm this, I'm that. And that's all fine and good. But the public wants to see someone professional because they're going to hear you a whole lot better and take you serious.
Sure.
And if they feel like you're defensive about questions or what you're presenting, it's a whole different attitude. Can you share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree that if you're coming off defensive and you're coming off in that type of positioning, then all of a sudden the opportunity for you to connect is gone. The opportunity for you to build the relationship, not only with the anchor and the reporter, but the audience, right?
That's right.
I mean, you have to think of it as, I always tell my docs that I say, imagine it as in you're walking in, they're inviting you into their home and they're inviting you to speak with their family. Now, their family is 3 million or whatever it is, right? That's all the viewers that are there watching. But you've got to be respectful when you come into somebody else's house, and you want to do it in a way that, hey, how do I meet you where you are? Make sure that we connect in a very short timeline, but also make sure that we get the message out there in a way that makes sense, and make sure that it's not coming from a place of defense, but coming from a place of loving and serving, so that we're ensuring that you have the most successful opportunity possible. And so, yeah, I definitely talk docs through that. Anytime that they're about to get on, their first time, second time, third time, as many times as they need, we jump on a private one-on-one call as well. We jump on that call for an hour and a half, and we run through all the possible scenarios, and we just keep chunking it down and make sure that they're as prepared as possible for that. And if it's something that's touchy on a subject for them, or some type of information or some type of thing that doesn't jive with them, we figure out how to redirect that. We figure out how to keep on focus on task where we need to go to make sure that they're making those connections, because that's what it's about.
And Alex, have you ever personally come into a situation where they brought a medical doctor perhaps on at the same time really to discredit or discount your point of view?
We haven't run into that yet. I mean,
That's good.
really, yeah, we haven't. In fact, it's gotten to the point now to where all the medical doctors that are on the station that I'm on, we all know each other and we all refer back and forth. And it's become this other network of the news station. It's like the network, the news station docs, and we all refer people back and forth because we see each other so often. And you start to see each other.
I hope people are hearing what you're saying, because I want to sum some of it up here and help me know if I'm on the right track. But, getting on TV is awesome. It's scary, but it's awesome. And the impact you can have is so big, but there's a lot of landmines.
Sure.
And you need to know exactly how to go. And the benefit is the perception of you in your community, the impact on your practice, but also what you just said, you create more alliances with other people, whether it's other types of doctors in your community that now know who you are, respect what you have to say, and are going to send their patients to you.
Right.
And it's the full package.
Sure.
I can see why when I show up when you're speaking at some of these meetings, number one, it's always a full house for you. And I love that. And you bring a lot of energy into these seminars. And the people walk out loving what you've given them. And that's why I wanted you. I really respect that. And I think we need this because, part of what we do in ChiroSecure is we want to advance the entire profession. And we want to, how do I say it? We want to get to the public more. And we want to actually change the public perception of chiropractic. Yeah. And we do that in our own way. And part of it, by the way, is having you on here because we want the doctors to understand that they can do better and be bigger. Yeah. And from our perspective, we just want to make sure that they understand that there are risk management thoughts behind it as well, so that they don't go and step in it, so to speak. So what final words would you have for the doctors in terms of, basically, what's your program called?
Oh, my program's called TIC TV. And so it's TIC, like chiropractic, right?
Right.
So TIC TV. And you can find information at tictv.rocks.
Yeah. And Alex Vidan is on Facebook because I see you all the time. He's a great family guy. Yeah. I don't know that personally because I never hung out with his family, but I see them and they're also on Facebook all the time. So, I really appreciate that too. Yeah. But you've been a great guy in the profession. I hate to say it this way, but because it makes me even feel older, but you're one of the really young dynamos out there that are really helping move the profession forward in a way that others aren't. You're just not in the same category in what you're offering up to people. And I love that. And I want to encourage people to really connect with you and learn how they can do what you're doing so that we can have a greater impact for all of us as chiropractors, right?
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree. Well, number one, thank you for saying that. It really, truly does mean a lot to me. I really do appreciate that. And, just to piggyback on your sentiments there, that's what it's about. It's about elevating our profession. It's about getting that message out there in such a way that people are just like, well, not do you see a chiropractor, but instead, who's your chiropractor, right? That's what it starts to come down to. It's like, it's not if you have one or not, it's just who is it? That's where I want it to be. I mean, my personal mission and goal is to have it to where we have a solid chiropractor on every single news station across the US. Like, what kind of an impact would that have? And then start to expand out from there and start to go global from there too.
Sure.
But there's a lot of people to help out there that don't know anything about what true chiropractic is about. And that's a great way to have that introduction, to be able to put our hand out, shake their hand and say, let me show you some of this and let me show you what this is about. And that's where you build trust, which is what you were talking about before. So I truly do appreciate that. Those are the types of people that we want to work with, that are looking to elevate their status, elevate the status of chiropractic, grow their practice along the way, and that can follow an effective and detailed process to make sure that it happens effectively for them.
And let's continue to work together to promote changing the public perception of chiropractic. That is our mission. So again, I want to thank you for being here. I'll look forward to seeing you on the road pretty soon.
For sure.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me. I truly do appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Gotcha.